Hello everyone and welcome back to part 2 of how to paint Mortis Engine. In this video I'm gonna focus on the Corpse Master. Here is the list of colors that I'm going to be using on the miniature. I have the model fully assembled and I glued it onto a used flying base. First color I'm going to use is Incubi Darkness and start applying it on the bottom around halfway on the robe. Now I want to have it blended nicely, so I'm going to apply Nuln oil wash, and again I'm using gravity's help, so I'm applying it upside down. In this way I have the smoothest transition from light to dark. Once the wash is completely dry, I'm going to use Kabalite Green, and I use a small dry brush and start dry brushing mainly the bottom and some of the sharpest features. Then with a medium layer brush I start layering all the sharpest features just to have a smoother transition. Now I'm going to use Sybarite Green, and I do an edge highlight on all the robe areas so the nice green is blended together. Now that the robe is finished, I'm going to focus on the cloak, so I'm going to use Dark Reaper, and with an old small brush I start dry brushing all the cloak area. Now I'm going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey, and I start layering all the sharpest features of the cloak. Now I leave the cloak for a side and I focus on the skin. So I start base painting the head and the hand with Ionrach skin. I do a mix of Drakenhof Nightshade and Lahmian medium, a 1-to-3 part ratio, and start applying it on the flesh. Once the wash is completely dry, I'm going to use Deepkin Flesh and start highlighting the skin. I am adding a fine highlight with Pallid Witch Flesh. Don't need too much, only the sharpest features. Now I'm going to give it a wash with Reikland Fleshshade. I don't use a lot, just a very little amount. I still want to have the flesh mainly look like dirty and rotten. I'm going to add Carroburg Crimson Wash into the mouth and some of the areas that maybe make it a bit more fleshier. Once the mouth is completely dry, now I'm going to use Screaming Skull and base paint all the teeth. Now I'm going to focus on the staff, so the base color for it is going to be Dryad bark. I'm trying to be as neat as possible where the model is painted already. And also with a small brush, I base paint the nails. Now I'm going to give it a wash with Nuln oil, all the Dryad bark areas. Once the wash is completely dry, I am using Gorrthor brown, and with a small old brush I start dry brushing the staff. Now I'm going to use Steel Legion Drab and start highlighting the staff and also the nails. With that, the wood is finished, so now I can focus on the parchments. So the Zandri dust is going to be the base color for each parchment, and also the eye cover bandage. I'm giving it a wash with Agrac's Earthshade. Now that the wash is completely dry, I am using Ushabti bone and start layering the parchments and also the eye mask. I'm giving it a fine highlight with Screaming Skull. Now I'm going to use Abaddon Black, and I dilute it with water, like a 1:3 part ratio, so it flows very smoothly, like an ink, and start making some writings on each of the parchments. I'm going to use Leadbelcher for the metallic parts, mainly the keys and some of the pins which are holding the parchments. I'm using Nuln oil wash on the Leadbelcher areas. Once it's dry, I start highlighting with Stormhost silver. Don't need too much, I still want to keep the areas quite dark, so just mainly the sharpest features where the light would hit the most. Now that the metallic parts are done as well, I can focus on the hair, and Dawnstone is going to be the base color for the hair. I decided to use a little bit more of Carroburg Crimson, mainly on the eye sockets, just to give it a bit more grimdark look. Like that it's badly injured, or that's why it's covered, or like bleeding eyes. Now I'm going back to the hair and start applying Ionrach's Earthshade wash. So I apply it all the Dawnstone areas. Now I'm going back to use Dawnstone and just correct all the hair, just to make it a little bit more brighter. Now I'm going to use Administratum Grey, and I start highlighting the hair and also the tip of the hood. Now that the miniature is finished, the only thing is left is the little skull. So I start base painting it with Zandri dust, making sure that not to go over where I already painted the model. Now I'm going to apply Ionrach's Earthshade on the skull. Once the wash is completely dry, I am using Morghast bone. And first, with a small old brush, I start dry brushing the skull. And then with a small layer brush, I start layering all the sharpest features of the skull. I apply Screaming Skull, and I do it as a highlight. So only the sharpest features, such as the nose tip, of the brows and the cheek and the teeth. And finishing it by applying Blood for the Blood God, and just putting it mainly inside of the open skull. I'm also using a little bit of my fingers, so just to blend it nicely. And now that the model is finished, I am gluing it onto the palanquin. I hope you find this video useful to paint your own corpse maker or some of the necromancers in the same color scheme. I will see you all in part 3, where I will be focusing on the banshee spirits flying around the core. If you enjoyed the videos I make, please do subscribe to my channel, leave a like and hit the bell button to be notified about future painting tutorial contents. Thanks for watching, cheers!